Today I want to talk about Jupiter's Legacy, which is a show that premiered on Netflix a few weeks ago, and it's basically another one of these superhero adaptations of comic books. Jupiter's Legacy is based on a comic book series by Mark Millar, who's very well known in kind of the greater comic book interwebs. Before I start this, I have to confess that I am not a comic book reader. I kind of dabble in comic or superhero related nerd culture like the MCU. I wouldn't give my soul to these series, but I quite enjoy them. The reason I wanted to talk about Jupiter's Legacy, even though I really have no major stake in it, is because the greater question of adaptation interests me. I am not highly familiar with the source material, so I acknowledge that this series wasn't really for me. One of my thoughts about adaptations is that they should try to appeal to a general audience as well as the target audience, or as well as people who are already familiar with the source material. In the case of Jupiter's Legacy, there was definitely a few issues for someone who was completely unfamiliar with this series prior to watching it, which I'm going to get into in a bit. There's some really great things about this series, and I'm happy to see superhero media, but at the same time, I kind of want to talk about a few of the things that frustrated me about the TV series in particular, because I feel like a lot of people, especially fans, are like really enthusiastic about this series, and I don't know, there was a few things about it that I didn't particularly enjoy. I don't know if some of my criticisms are things that should be leveled at the comics instead of the show, but there were some choices that were made in the show that kind of bothered me, which is why I'm making this video. And hopefully all of you are like nice to me in the comment section. I'm not trying to like crap on something other people love. If you enjoyed the show and you got what you wanted out of it, I'm really happy for you. But I also didn't particularly like how this was adapted because it didn't really work for someone like me who has basically no familiarity with the source material. So, based on the trailer and the basic information I have from the internet about the TV show in particular, Jupiter's Legacy is about basically two generations of superheroes. There's a group of older superheroes who are part of like a superhero union led by Sheldon, who's the utopian, who's kind of the Superman hero of the Justice League equivalent in this world. He's married to Lady Liberty, and he has his brother Walt, who I can't remember what his superhero name was. He has like psychic mind powers. And then there's other members of the Union, and the show is kind of split between two different timelines. First of all, there's kind of the main timeline about Utopian and his family, and the younger generation of superheroes, his son, daughter, Brandon, and Chloe, and kind of how there's a schism between the older generation who abide by, a superhero code, and the new generation who is starting to question that code. And then the other half of it is kind of a superhero origin story involving Sheldon and his brother Walt and all of kind of the original members of the superhero union in this universe. As far as I can tell, like, this universe is not connected to like any other comic universes. It's not like an extended universe like the DCEU or the MCU, and it's kind of its own separate thing. And I think that's where a lot of the problems initially start cropping up for me in this show. One of the problems I had as a viewer who was unfamiliar with the source material was that there was a lot of things that I would have liked explained to me, just basic world building details that never really were. I remember getting to like episode 2 or 3 and still not really understanding the basics of the world. Like, what is the Union? What are their superpowers? Are they an American thing? Are they a worldwide thing? How big is this organization? What are the politics of this organization? Like, I really felt like the world building is there in the background, but as a new viewer, I just could not understand any of it. When you start the series, the Union is never really like fully explained to new viewers. I assume that it's sort of like a Justice League format. They seem to accept like applications from other superpowered beings, and there seems to be kind of a rigorous process. You have to abide by this code, which I assume there's more entries to the code, but the only things that were mentioned in the entire series was do not kill people no matter what, like no matter what, and something about how they're not going to interfere in like politics or general world at large. As a viewer, I felt like these were kind of important, but they were never really explained. And I also found that a lot of the superpowers were not super well explained. I understand that maybe they were trying to go for more kind of like throw you into the world organic thing, but I don't know if we were supposed to know what these people could do. Like there was points in later episodes, like I'm pretty sure when someone says to Lady Justice or something that like your power is the truth, and I was like, was that ever established before this? So I found myself being like wondering the whole time, like what are their powers? Like the Utopian seems to have like the full array of like Superman powers where he's like really strong and indestructible and has like laser vision, but that's it. And then Lady Liberty seems to have like basically the same powers and they can all fly. And then Brandon and Chloe, who are Lady Liberty and the Utopian's son and daughter, also have like non-specific powers. Like Chloe is also indestructible and can like throw cars around. And like Brandon is supposed to be the same, though he seems weaker than his father or something. It was really hard for me to grasp onto like what particularly are their powers, like what are their areas of strength. I think the one whose powers were most clear and most specific were kind of Walt's, as far as I can tell. He's just like, this psychic guy who can, go into your mind and manipulate things and kind of like a mind palace thing. And that was kind of cool. But also, the series has a habit of just relentlessly introducing new people with new powers and like not really well explaining them. Like Hutch, who was kind of an interesting character, but kind of had a clumsy introduction, in my opinion, where they were kind of like, oh, by the way, he's like SKYFOX's son. I don't know, that piece of dialogue felt really cringy for some reason for me. I know they need to explain it somehow, but it just didn't seem to work for me. So Hutch has this kind of cool device that he can specifically manipulate. No one else can use it. And it's like this magical piece of teleportation technology. And like, that's it. Like all of the other children of the main, Union superheroes seem to have, quite considerable powers. But like Hutch, his only ability seems to be to like use the technology. And I'm thinking like, shouldn't he have more powers? Or is this like it? Is he just kind of a magical tech guy? So that was one of the major problems, is just trying to understand like basic things like that. And then there was also another member of the Union. I'm going to call him the black member of the Union. I think his name was Fitz. I'm so sorry. They just hardly ever mentioned his name. So I never really figured out who he was or what his powers were supposed to be, other than kind of being like a scientist guy. But like they didn't explain that either, and he has like the ability to just shoot weird power from his hand. So that was weird. Fitz, and I think his daughter's name was Petra. I literally only know that because I had subtitles on during like episode 2 when they were introduced. Are really like not developed at all. I never really got a fix on that character because they never really expanded upon like what does this guy do, and like why should I care about him, and why is he in a wheelchair. And I was also frustrated with the character of Petra because she's a black female superhero who shows up, but she only has like a few scenes, and her plotline is like very, very underutilized. Like this is basically just about Sheldon, the Utopian. Like he's the only character that gets like a huge amount of screen time and development. He kind of was, I guess, the kind of protagonist of this show. And for me, that was kind of, I guess, disappointing. Like, it seems like there's all of these really interesting characters on the sidelines or also attached to the superhero union that never really get adequately expanded on. I felt like even the Utopian's wife, Lady Liberty, never really got a huge amount of development. Like, so much of the story is about Sheldon being a shitty father and losing his own father, in a scene that, because I'd hardly met this character, had hardly any impact upon me. I was like, oh, that's his dad. Oh, okay, now his dad is committing suicide. Um, that was fast. Should I care? Should I be sad? Should I be shocked? Like, what am I supposed to feel here? The stuff that is relevant to the plot is being shoved in your face constantly. Like, they mentioned SKYFOX like 5 billion times. And yet I still have no bloody idea what he did beyond like break the code to become kind of this boogeyman for members of the union. And so they kind of shove a lot of stuff in your face, but you never really feel the weight of it because for me, like, I had no idea why we're supposed to be worried about this SKYFOX guy. Like, why are we worried about him? And I think that's mostly, I feel, what am I supposed to feel here pretty much sums up a lot of my problems with characterization and how the plot of the show was laid out. They spent a lot of time, they spent like 50% of the show's runtime doing like the backstory of Sheldon, and a lot of it seems completely irrelevant. I felt like we really didn't get to know any other character other than him. They even introduced, like, I guess the guy who ends up being SKYFOX, like George, and he seemed like a completely normal person in the flashbacks, except for the very end. And there was like no explanation of like why this guy would become evil at all. And I just really felt like the prequel part was very, very, very disconnected from absolutely everything else going on in the plot. It felt like the show could not decide whether or not it wanted to be a prequel or whether or not it wanted to be kind of a family drama about the utopian being a bad dad and his children's complexes about that. Another thing that kind of frustrated me about the show is that with the trailer, it seems to be really pushing this idea of like a family drama in a superhero world. And it's about this disconnect between generations. And like the first episode, or two kind of telegraphs this. It opens with the kids. There's one part, I think in episode 1 or 2, where there's a scene that seems to be introducing Brandon, the son character, as one of the main characters. And then it kind of like dropped the subplots of the younger kids in like episode 3, and then they are like scattered a little bit throughout. And it just doesn't really feel like the focus of the show was actually supposed to be on the relationships between the parents and the children. It was the type of show where I couldn't really ever get a grasp on like who exactly it was supposed to be about and whether I should care. As for the family drama aspect of it, I was a bit disappointed how it was carried out. I am interested in the premise of like what it would be like to have a family of superheroes and how those expectations would affect the kids from that family. And it did kind of deliver on that. But the way they delivered on that was kind of not really great, in my opinion. I feel like they could have, made it a lot more complex and interesting. The route they seemed to go was that Sheldon is a parent with unrealistically high expectations, not the kind of unrealistic expectations that parents have in real life, but the kind of absolutely ridiculous to the extent that I don't think any living, breathing human being would have these expectations, level of expectation for his kids. I just felt like it was not super nuanced. It was like the message I was getting was that Sheldon, right from the start, was like, you have to be absolutely perfect. There's no room for imperfection at all, period, end of sentence. And for some reason, in the like, I don't even know how old his kids are, in like the 20 to 30 years of these, kids' lives, he's like apparently never budged from that. Like, no one has ever questioned the fact that he was raising his kids with ridiculous expectations up until this point. And also the role of the mom, Lady Liberty, was kind of neglected in that, like, did she have the same expectations for her kids? Like, that's never made super clear. Like, it seems like she follows her husband, but also, like, it took her, like, how many years to get to the point where she realized that her husband's expectations were destroying her kids' lives? Like, I don't know, that just does not seem realistic to me. Like, Lady Liberty is portrayed as this really compassionate mother who seems to really genuinely care for her kids and has her own kind of moral compass and seems to be kind of a strong female character. But also the implication is that she just never fought for her kids' independence, like ever, until the events of the show. I also feel like the kind of way that Brandon and Chloe were written to kind of react to their parents' high expectations were kind of like also weirdly exaggerated and kind of unrealistic. Like Brandon, this I presumably like mid-20s guy, still completely idolizes his dad and has like never questioned his dad's morality until this series. And just feels like he never lives up, which I've seen it done so many times, and I don't really think it was done particularly uniquely here. Also, there's parts of like Brandon's characterization or plots that were kind of affecting his outlook that kind of got rushed, in my opinion. Like in episode 1, we meet a friend, like I think his friend was called Tectonic. I remembered his name because I thought he would be important later. And they have this brief scene where his friend is honestly kind of being an asshole and is like, hey, why don't we just be irresponsible 20-somethings and, do drugs and be reckless? And Brandon is kind of portrayed as a stick in the mud for, I don't know, just, not wanting to engage in that sort of stuff. And then his friend dies like absolutely horribly in like the next scene. And I was like, oh, we just met that guy. I I didn't really like him and I had no attachment to him, but now we're gonna be sad for the next episode or two about this guy dying. So I thought that was kind of like a weird choice to make. And also the first episode starts off with like Brandon killing a supervillain in probably super justified circumstances. And then it's like the rest of the show is about how like his dad is like wrestling with the fact that like Brandon killed someone who is about to like possibly murder millions of people. And it just feels like, how idealistic do you have to be for that to be something that you've never encountered before? Like, are you telling me that in like the 100 or so years or 90 years or so since these people have become superheroes that no one has accidentally died? Like, has this ever happened in the past? Like, I find it a little bit crazy to think that this is like super unprecedented. I don't know. That was just the impression I got. It frustrated me because it just seemed like Sheldon was meant to embody this kind of unrealistic Paragon ideal that honestly seems totally unreasonable in so many ways. And then Chloe, I had a problem with how Chloe was characterized. Similar to Lady Liberty, I feel like there are female characters in this show that have personality, but I never feel like they're super compelling or super well written. And I feel like with Chloe, they were doing the very, very well-worn, washed out celebrity, constantly uses drugs, feels that she's a disappointment, that people are always going to take advantage of her. So she's just a complete bitch to everybody. And I really did not enjoy her character. Like I know that it was definitely intended for her to be kind of this like tragic, mean character who maybe gets some sort of redemption down the line. But I feel like they did a pretty bad job of trying to make her sympathetic if that was the intention. She has like one or two scenes where she's kind of like self-reflective, but like the rest of the time she's shown to be this like absolutely unrestrained drug user who apparently has like no redeeming qualities except for like a few fleeting moments of self-awareness. And the few times where it looks like she might actually start to change and like realize that her life is messed up, she just reverts back. But it also struck me as just like unnecessarily kind of gritty, and she was also kind of portrayed as this like really sexed up drug addict. And there's nothing wrong with women being portrayed in media as being like highly sexual, but like it never it just seemed really like unnecessary to me personally. And I really wanted a female character in this series that I could relate to and enjoy. And Chloe wasn't it. She just came across as pretty much uniformly unsympathetic and spoiled, which I think they probably weren't going for. And I also felt that she and Brandon were very decentralized. They were not the point. So I felt like the family drama was technically like secondary to a lot of things, like introducing tons and tons of new characters, like some of which seem genuinely cool, but only show up for like 1 or 2 episodes and have very little explained about them. So I really feel like this series could have benefited from a lot tighter writing. They probably could have eliminated like maybe 70% of the flashback story. Like, I feel like with this series, they should have either committed to doing an origin story. Like, I would have watched a better developed series that was just about the origin story, or they could have focused on the present and really focused on the family dynamics. But I feel like they tried to pull off both and didn't necessarily pull off both particularly well. That was just some of the major issues. All of that being said, there was one character that I actually really enjoyed, and he shows up for like 1 episode, and that was this Bartholomew guy. Like, I don't really know much about him, but the actor who played him was like really fun, and just the reactions from the other characters was interesting. I really want to see more about this character. He seems like an interesting guy, and I really want to see more of kind of these fun side characters. There were good things about this series. Some of the action was solid. Some of it looked a little bit janky because of the CGI and the kind of, at times, weird looking age makeup and superhero costumes. But for the most part, I thought that there were some parts of it that were quite fun. And the plot really picked up around episodes 7 and 8, even though there was also some parts of that were also a bit anticlimactic, in my opinion. For example, there's not really like a major end of show fight scene like I was expecting. But there were some good parts about the series. Like, most of all, it's pretty competently done and there's some good aspects to it, but I think that maybe the script or the plotting really needed some revision and review, and they should have really focused more on specific characters rather than having two very disconnected seeming plots. But that's just my thoughts. Okay, so I'm so sorry for fans of the show or the series that this entire episode was kind of, crapping on it. But this kind of came from a place of genuinely wanting to enjoy this series and not really enjoying it. Please let me know how you felt about Jupiter's Legacy down below if you want, or if you have read the comic books, maybe you can explain some of the things that confused the hell out of me. I would really appreciate that. I'm not sure if this series gets a second season, if I will watch it, but I thought that it was an interesting show to take a look at, even if it didn't quite live up to the expectations of what I wanted. Please comment and like below if you would like this video. Please let me beat the algorithm. I'm a really new YouTuber and I could really take the boost. Subscribe for more content if you like what you see, even though I won't necessarily be covering a lot of superhero content, but maybe go to my channel and see if there's anything that interests you there. That's it for this video. Goodbye and check me out.